Welcome. Obviously, everyone who's joining, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Conor Marsh. I'm a healthy lifestyle advisor for the North East Durham County area at the minute. I specialise mainly in peri-op, people with pre and post surgery, but I am more of a physical activity style of person. So I'll be covering more the physical activity side of things in this, and I'll pass on to Shamyla.
So yeah, I'm Shamyla Younas. I'm a GP, that's my background, and I'm also clinical lead at ABL Health. And I'm going to be talking a bit about physical activity, health benefits, and lots of other aspects as well. Yeah, like Conor said, it's recorded. So if you don't mind being on camera, that's great. And we'll try and make it as interactive as possible.
Yeah, we'll put it out now. We'll be asking questions. I will call. I'll say your names. I'll drag you out the dark and into the light to answer a question. I think it's good. It's good to have that nice engagement. See what you guys know, see what we can, share, and I think everyone can take some away from this, even us. I think that's always the best thing.
So yeah, so we've done introductions, and what we'll be sort of covering today is a number of areas. So things like reasons for doing physical activity, the health benefits, barriers to health to physical activity. How to break the cycle of inactivity, how to prevent injuries, examples of different exercises that you can do. We'll also talk a little bit about goal setting, and we'll be talking about opportunities that you can take up in the community or even at your workplace to improve physical activity. So first of all, I'll just talk about guidance on physical activity first. So national guidance is that we should do at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity or 75 minutes of vigorous activity or a mixture of both. And these include strengthening activities on 2 days and reduced extended periods of sitting. So trying not to sit too much in the day. And that's kind of all summarised in this little caption in this picture here. The thing about strengthening activities is really just to allow the muscles to kind of pull on your bones, and it helps to strengthen your bones overall. And it's quite important, especially for women who are sort of approaching the menopause, because once they go through the menopause, their estrogen levels drop. And it really does rely on our bone density before we get to menopause that dictates whether or not you'll develop osteoporosis later on. So the stronger your bones are before the menopause, the less likely you are to get osteoporosis, which is basically bone thinning. So that's absolutely key. Definitely try and increase your sort of muscle strengthening exercises. In the years coming up to menopause, but just generally, it's good to do that just to get into the habit of it.
Yeah, fantastic. Just before moving on there, I think the main thing for myself personally is more the physical activity side of it is, we do kind of relate to a lot of things. The Borg scale, it's something that you might have heard of, you might not. It's just a scale between 1 to 10. It's more of a personal reference to yourself. For moderate intensity, you want to be around a 6 to 7, where you can still do your exercise, have a conversation, maybe carry out some day-to-day activities just shortly after. A bit of mild sweating, obviously the vigorous activity is more 8, 9, and some at risk maybe 10. Well, obviously that's why it is for a short amount of time. Obviously, you can get the higher intensity for a short amount of time if that, benefits yourself or clients that you may have, if, time is obviously a barrier within it. But we would recommend mainly for a lot of people, the moderate intensity exercises might be more beneficial. It's not putting as much stress, on muscle and joints, things like that as well.
So you can see a few examples there in the pictures. So there's weight lifting sort of exercises, which, like Conor said, it suits some people, not others. Yoga is a really good one because you do end up using your own body strength almost as weights to do some of the exercises, and that really can help to strengthen your muscles and your bones. And then just simple day-to-day things, so just carrying heavy shopping can be a good way to strengthen those muscles and the bones. So it can really come in different forms. So why is physical activity so important? I thought this would be a good opportunity to just have a little think about the different reasons that you might be aware of why physical activity is important to do. So
I think personally I would say if you go first and get your answer out the way before anyone else takes your answer. No, so anyone likes to unmute, go ahead and chuck your answer out there. Not well go.
Mental health.
Mental health,
Yeah.
boom, straight away, there you go. No one can take that now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
mental health's definitely the biggest ones. Anyone got any other answers?
Better sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
definitely.
Any for yourself there, Dominic?
Keep moving to stay active.
Say that again.
Keep moving to stay active.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Anyone else there? Honey, have you got one?
Any other benefits?
Yeah, to have probably more energy balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, great energy balance. Claire, go and ask you. What about maybe, because there's a lot of like, personal things. What about things that can affect, around you as well? I might put her on the spot there, bless her.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to say it strengthens your bones and joints.
Yeah, definitely. I think the one I was like leaning to myself there was just saying like it's a big social thing as well. Obviously it links in a lot with mental health, but physical activity can be a great way to meet other people, interact with other people that have shared interests and things like that, and looking after your well-being through a social aspect of it. I've just realized how dark I look in this room, blimey. What will be beneficial for you? Some of the greatest people I've met and I know to this day, is through exercise long term. Have you got any more just to finish off there, Rosina? If I've said that correctly.
We're changing the mood as well.
Sorry, you go first there, Rosina, and then I need you to say yours just after.
In case you've got some kind of, for example, I've got PCOS and you've got diabetes or anything, it just helps with that as well.
100%.
Yeah, definitely can improve some of your other conditions. So physical activity, I guess, can improve weight loss and sort of the metabolic changes that you see with conditions like diabetes or PCOS. And yeah, you can get lots more health benefits from that if you're able to sort of sustain that long term. Any others?
Oh, sorry. Right. You might have got a quick glance there. Anyone else? Anyone else?
Changing mood, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so mood seems to be quite a popular one that people recognize. It does, release endorphins and
and gives you confidence.
Yeah, yeah, these are all really good.
Yeah, fantastic. Loads of great answers. I feel like you guys could just took over the session for us today. Fantastic.
So I'll just go through some more. So in terms of other benefits to physical activity, it accounts for 1 in 6 deaths. So inactivity accounts for 1 in 6 deaths, which has obviously a big impact on the country. Anyone know how much it costs the country? Our level of inactivity.
Okay.
Does anyone know?
Chuck any number you fancy. Any number at all.
It's a lot. I'll tell you, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's not like 15 quid.
So we're talking, we're talking the NHS, we're talking the economy.
What are you thinking, Helen? What number would you
give me?
A million.
A million? Any advance on that?
I'm going to say either in the 100 millions or up to a billion potentially, because it is a big problem.
Very good. Yeah. It's actually 7.4 billion, which is a crazy amount. It's a crazy amount. But yeah, that's how much it costs the country because it just has an impact on so many different levels. Other facts include that the UK population is 20% more inactive than it was in the 1960s. And I guess that all fits in with technology, things that are, having things that make our lives a bit easier. So we're less physically active. We've all got cars, we walk less. There's just so many factors as to why we're less active. And whilst it might seem that we've advanced in many ways, it has had an impact on our general health and our activity levels. Other reasons, other factors, men are more likely to report being active at recommended levels than women. Can anyone think why that might be? Maybe there's some common reasons as to why that might be. Why do men feel that they are managing to achieve the guidance on physical activity compared to women?
Is it like a confidence thing? So I know a lot of women don't like to go to the gym or work out in front of people because they feel like everyone's looking at them.
Yeah, that's a common thing that I hear, yeah. Any other reasons?
Because the women are at home looking after the children and hardly get time after work.
Yeah, they tend to be, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the younger they are, they tend to sort of be almost glued to them. But yeah, that's a common reason as well. And then other facts as well. So around 1 in 3 men, so that's 34%, and 1 in 2, that's 42%, women are not active enough for good health. So when we're talking about being active enough for good health, it's essentially, are they meeting the guidance for physical activity? And it seems that, you know, a large proportion of people are not, women less so than men. And again, that probably links in with some of the factors that you mentioned. Also, people don't realize the benefits of physical activity and mental health. So, you know, often I see patients in general practice who, you know, they may be seeing me for depression. And one of the things that I discuss is about being physically active, going for a walk, just doing something really simple that just gets them out of the house, or doing something physical. And, you know, they really, at the time, because they're quite depressed, they don't really have the motivation to do it. And often they have to sort of push themselves to do it, but they do find the benefits once they're into it. So yeah, a lot of people don't really realize the benefits. And, you know, I think when you're in that mental state, it can be really difficult to, you know, to think differently. People with disabilities or long-term conditions, they're twice as likely not to be as active for good health as well. So they're much less likely to be physically active. And physical activity varies with age, so and different life stages. So people tend to get less active as they get older, and older people are, you know, much less active. They try, you know, some are, you know, they try to keep active just to keep their independence, but there's a large proportion that they just get less active, and it sort of can tie in with, you know, other problems like having arthritis and feeling that they can't actually, you know, walk as much or do as much physical activity, or they worry about making the condition worse, you know, things like that. And 1 in 4 people would be more active if they were advised by a healthcare professional about it. So, you know, the benefits of any healthcare professional sort of advising physical activity, you know, it does have quite a big impact on people. Even though we kind of intuitively know we should do it, when they hear it from a healthcare professional, it just can be a bit more motivating. So there's some facts. I'll talk a bit more about the health benefits as well. So you've kind of mentioned some.
Just want to go there. I think something I would like to ask everyone is, do any of those, you know, kind of stand out to you? Did they shock you? Did you not, you know, you were not maybe aware of any of that? For myself personally, the cost really shocked me. Just when we ran through this before, I was like, God, that's like a lot of money. And you don't think about those sides of things, you know, even in employment and public health, you don't think about the financial, you know, side of it. Does anyone else, you know, maybe does it jump out about, you know, sorry, did any of these jump out to you? Any all maybe?
I think about the population being more inactive, because obviously you think there's much more in terms of leisure provision and gyms and all sorts of active pursuits that people can do, but actually people aren't as active in their day-to-day lives, are they, despite all of that?
Yeah, I think obviously, you know, when the lockdowns probably had a huge impact on that as well. You know, like you've been saying, like access to these facilities may have, you know, been limited. That might have even pushed the inactive a bit more up, obviously, in these past 2 years. Any others that maybe, you know, stand out and shock anyone? No. No worries. No problem.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Right, so I'll talk about the health benefits and risk reduction that physical activity brings. So if you were to do regular physical activity, it can reduce your risk of a whole number of health problems. So in terms of all-cause mortality, that's basically if you die from really any cause, it can reduce the risk of that by 30%. It can reduce the risk of heart disease or strokes by 35%. type 2 diabetes, it can reduce the risk of developing that by 40%, up to 40%. It can even reduce your risk of colon cancer by 30%. And you might wonder how on earth are bowels, related to physical activity, but that's what the stats show. It can actually reduce the risk by as much as 30%. It can even reduce the risk of breast cancer by 20%. Depression, it can reduce the risk by 30%. So they're all sort of around the 30-40 mark. Hip fractures by up to 68%, and that's a direct benefit. So as I said, if you're not physically active in your, up until sort of your 50s, for women particularly, that has an impact on your bone density. So you're less likely to have stronger bones, dense bones. And if you're less likely to have that once you go through the menopause, because your hormone levels, your estrogen levels drop through the menopause, you don't get that bone protection that the hormone gives you, that natural protection that it gives you. So estrogen is involved in keeping your bones strong. And not having estrogen is not a bad thing. It's natural, it's completely natural after the age of around 50. But having weak bones before then just is a recipe for for problems later on. So once that estrogen level drops, your bones are more prone to getting thinner even after that. And you can see, I should have probably included it in here, but you can see a graph of what happens to bone density after menopause. So it kind of starts off quite high, and then as you go through the menopause, the estrogen levels drop. The bone density level sort of gradually falls as well. And the lower it is, the more at risk you are of osteoporosis. And that's when you're at risk of hip fractures and really any kind of fracture. If you're already, so that's just kind of, let's say, inactivity, the starting point, and you sort of end a bit lower down. If your starting point of bone density is a lot higher because you're regularly doing exercise, you're strengthening your muscles and it's strengthening your bones are getting more dense. If you're starting with a higher level of bone density, by the time you sort of reach the menopause, your bone density is going to fall a little bit anyway, just because the estrogen levels drop. But your bone density is going to generally be higher than for someone who was inactive. It might be lower down here, but for someone who's been physically active, they've maintained it, they've got stronger bones after menopause, that drop in that the estrogen causes is not going to be as much of a problem, and you're much less likely to have osteoporosis and fractures, hip fractures or any other kind of fracture. So it's really important to try to increase your bone density just by keeping physically active. It doesn't mean that after the menopause it's too late. It's definitely not. There are other things at play that help to strengthen your bones. So even if you don't have the estrogen in your body after the menopause, doing those strengthening exercises still has its impact on your bones, and it still promotes development of bone, making it more dense, more strong. But you just don't have that added benefit of the estrogen. So it's almost like you have to do as much as you can to keep your bones strong before you get through the menopause to really have the least negative impacts later on. So yeah, that's what I would recommend. And for men as well, men are not, they can also have fractures. They're less likely than women, but the risk is there, and if they are able to strengthen their bones, that's going to really reduce that risk. So you can see why 68% is quite a large proportion, really, a large sort of risk level. And then finally, dementia. It can reduce the risk of dementia by 30%. So physical activity, it does help to strengthen the heart muscle, and it helps to get the blood pumping all around the body. So it does tend to affect all organs, really. And that's why you sort of see these sort of levels of benefits with physical activity.
Excellent. Obviously, just moving on from there, then obviously we went through a lot of the great benefits of exercise, but obviously, you know, like Shamyla said earlier, you know, it's why are people not doing it though still? You know, if there's all these great exercise, all these great benefits, what is stopping people? Over to yourself, I want you to maybe think about your current level of physical activity and maybe what are the reasons for yourself, what's stopping you guys from maybe even doing any exercise. If anyone would like to, you know, say them again, you can unmute, put your point first.
So a lot of people tend to say, I know what to do, it's just doing it. So
Yeah.
what is it? What is it? What are those barriers? What are the things that get in the way?
Lack of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, time's the biggest one. Time is definitely one of the biggest ones. Go ahead, Annie.
Yeah, I was gonna say time, but that's fine.
You know what I mean? Exactly.
Yeah, motivation probably.
Yeah, motivation, you know, I can't bother dragging myself out of bed quite a day. I might just have another half an hour instead. You know, got to get that motivation, drag yourself into it. Is it you want to do it or you're dragging yourself through it? Different things like, you know, that sort of mindset. Anything else?
The weather and the time of the year.
Yeah, the time of year, you know, you're not going to go running if it's absolutely snowing or hailstoning or anything like that. That storm came in, and I'll tell you now, I didn't see anyone jogging through that. And that came in a couple of weeks ago, blimey. That was definitely something. What about, trying to think. What about, obviously not for myself, but if you're married and have kids, you know, what might be the barrier there? You know, obviously I don't have it myself. You know, I'm not married, I don't have kids. I think maybe a barrier.
The time to exercise if you've got kids, but also the energy. A lot of people feel like if they've got to look after the kind of the household and the kids, they actually don't have the almost energy to exercise.
Yeah, a lot of family commitments. You know, you've got things to do. You've got to come home, cook, clean. You've got kids. You know, you've got these other things to do, which obviously does link into time a lot. You know, but it still is a barrier. For example, I have a client next week who's openly said that she can't come to a session because she's looking after her granddaughter. You know, that's a family commitment right there, prevent the barrier. Excellent stuff, really good answers. So obviously the first thing, you know, what we mentioned was motivation was a big one. These are some quotes currently that we have from some of the clients that we've had before from the Greater Manchester area. You know, obviously they were saying things like, you know, what keeps people motivated is they want to change things with the children. That's a big one. Even I hear now, I want to keep up with my kids. I want to try and make sure I'm active with them as well, which is a huge one. You know, and it is just quite a simple thing as well, such as, you know, what motivates you just having them twice a week. You know, same again, that's looking at that time barrier. We're just having these sessions twice a week. We're not asking for much time and you're still keeping yourself active. Same again, this other client said setting small goals links into that motivation, links into the time that we said before. Started doing an hour a week, split into 2 half-an hours. It's not taking much time, keeping the motivation. There's no other barriers like family commitments. Maybe it's half an hour just for them, their own time. And it is quite inspirational how some people, like we said before, with the illness and disability before, you know, can suffer putting weight on there. And obviously this client here has started doing exercise, chair-based exercises as well. So they're trying not to let any of those barriers come between them and the exercise they want to get done. So they've just adapted the session. And obviously it says that after 20 sessions, I progress in the gym. The 20 sessions can be obviously up to yourself. You can do 5 days a week, 3 days a week, whichever, you know, tailors more to yourself. And they've lost 2 stone. The sleeping load's better. You know, we mentioned before in the benefits, sleep was one of them. They feel a load better. They're losing weight. The confidence, we mentioned that earlier, that'll be going up. And I just think it's fantastic how, you know, this shows that obviously the clients that we have are making progress and are feeling better in themselves, not just physically, but in their whole life. And that's what we're doing. We're changing through physical activity.
So I'll just talk about breaking the cycle of inactivity. So quite often we're in this position where we know we don't do enough. We would like to do more. And it might be that we're sort of bombarded with thoughts of why we're not able to do it. And we kind of roll with that rather than see what we can do to break that cycle. So I'll just sort of talk through the cycle of inactivity and how it can perpetuate. So let's say someone is physically inactive. It might be that they've got reasons for it. They've got chronic disease that they feel is a barrier. They've got long working hours. So we've sort of mentioned about time. Long commute times as well just might make us not motivated to then go and do some exercise. Just the thought of exercising might be daunting. So just having that thought of, oh, really, I ought to go to the gym or do this or do that. Often we feel like we have to do a whole lot more than actually we really need to do to improve our physical activity. And then just sedentary hobbies, just generally, doing things that don't require much physical activity. So I think that's partly down to the times that we live in now. We sort of talked about that fact that we're less active than we were in the 1960s, and I think part of it is just the way our lives are and technology and things like that. So that then leads to deconditioning. So you end up with less muscle strength, less overall strength, reduced balance, reduced fitness. That then impacts on the chronic disease, so it does tend to make that worse. You can get increased pain. You can get longer term issues with your metabolism. You also are at risk of cardiovascular disturbance, so it might be that blood pressure starts increasing because of it. Reduced quality of life generally, reduced confidence. You feel more tired generally, and it might even start impacting on your mental health. Just not doing as much physical activity does tend to can make you feel low. That then reduces your functional capacity, so you're not able to do as much physical activity or exercise as perhaps you previously could. And also just day-to-day activities, you're doing less because this inactivity is affecting you overall, and that just perpetuates the cycle. You just perpetuates the physical inactivity, and it just gets worse and worse. And this is what a lot of people find themselves. They find themselves in this situation, and often this just increases that feeling of they feel more daunted about even tackling the whole issue of physical activity. But there are ways of breaking that cycle, and it's all about trying to sort of problem solve around it. So we do get people who say, well, I can't do exercise because I've got arthritis in my knees, or I've got it in my hips, or whatever. And they've got this perception that it might be making their condition worse, because if they're feeling pain while they're doing the activity, it must be worsening the condition. But what we do, because we come across a lot of people in this situation in our weight management services, we have to sort of teach them that it's really important to make sure their pain is well controlled. So one of the things that we ask them to do is make sure that they have a chat with their GP to make sure that they're on adequate painkillers, so that they're able to sort of move more naturally and start doing some physical activity, because the overall benefit of doing that will help to improve their condition anyway. So one of the breaking the barrier would include painkillers if needed. The next one is perhaps when we're looking at motivation, lack of time, motivation, long work hours, it might be that you include an exercise buddy. Just find someone to do physical activity with. I think when you're doing it on your own, you don't really have to hold yourself to account. You can just say, oh gosh, I'm really not feeling it today, I think I'll give it a miss. It's just so easy to do that. Whereas if you plan to meet up with someone to go for even just a walk, a brisk walk or something like that, with someone, you're going to commit to each other, and you're more likely to do it. And actually, you'll probably get more benefit out of it. You get to meet that person. There's a bit of socializing involved, and it just feels a lot more natural. And it doesn't feel onerous. It doesn't feel like you're, you're on a prescription or something. It's a lot more enjoyable having someone to do it with. Just Connor, are you able to sort of click forward, just because it will show you that's it. So we've done painkillers, done exercise buddy. Oh, that's too much. It's all right. So the next one, goal setting, really important to know how to set goals. A lot of people will say, right, I just need to, go to I'm just going to sign up to the gym, and I'm going to go every week, and they pay the membership, and it never works. Or for many people, it just does not work. And often people will do this in January because it's New Year's resolution time, and by the end of the year, they're not really using their membership, and it's a waste of money. And why has that not worked? It's because that goal was just way too steep. It was not realistic. It was not smart. It's trying to sort of bite off more than you can chew. It's looking at let's say the guidance, which is do this amount of exercise regularly. looking at yourself and not really trying to bridge to get there. So, you know, taking small steps towards that is going to be more realistic than trying to do it all in one. So yeah, you get people who will buy you know, one of those exercise bikes, and it's, you know, that in their mind they think, I'm going to do this every day, 2 hours of that every day, and it might not even be suitable to them because they actually find it boring. Often it tends to be used to hang wet clothes on so that they dry. Whenever I've seen exercise bikes, they've got things hanging off them. So again, it's unrealistic. You've got to really think about what's the smart way of doing it. So Connor will be talking a bit more about goal setting and then planning as well. So again, I think we just get into this routine of our lives of, you know, you get up, you go, get ready, go to work, come back, sort the kids out or whatever, go to bed, and then it's like, oh, relaxation time, and or not, it depends what's, you know, what's on your plate kind of thing. But if you plan ahead, you know, you can sort your diary out so that you fit a bit of physical activity in. It doesn't have to be 2 hours of this or 1 hour of that. It could even just be, right, today 10 minutes I'm going to do this before I do XYZ. Or you know, I think Connor's going to come up with some more examples, but we were just talking earlier about linking it with other activities that you do day to day anyway. So let's say your routine is to watch a bit of TV at 8 o'clock or something. Just plan, okay, before I do that, I'm going to, you know, I'm going to go for a walk, then come back, and then I'll watch my TV, or, you know, something like that. There's different ways of doing it, but as long as you make a plan, you're much more likely to actually do it rather than trying to sort of think on the spot and do it. Because you'll just find, you know, other things will get in the way. You know, you'll prioritize other things and it will get missed. So planning is really important. And then small steps as well. So I mentioned before about making goals realistic, and a lot of people taking, you know, big steps that just then, you know, they fail at it, and then that affects their confidence, and then they think, oh, what's the point? I've kind of messed that up. And then they just sort of give up altogether. Making sure that your steps are realistic and small enough that are achievable will get you much further, because you can then move on to the next step and the next step. And by the end of, you know, let's say 6 months, you'll be surprised by how much not only you're doing, but how much you're consistently doing and you're keeping up with. Whereas, you know, people who take big steps, they'll succeed in the first, let's say, week or two, and then after that, they'll just fall behind because actually it just wasn't realistic and they can't keep up. So I've included here standing more. So I think a lot of our jobs involve sitting down, and I must admit, since the pandemic, and as a GP, we've been doing less face-to-face consultations and more remote work. And though it's changing, I did find that I was sitting down so much, and I just hated it because it does actually feel tiring. I find, but there's evidence that shows that if you're standing up more and sitting less, you can get a huge amount of health benefits from that. You know, it counts as exercise, believe it or not, because when you're standing up, you've got a good posture. Hopefully you've got a good posture. You're using your abdominal muscles. You're using all kinds of muscles without really thinking about it. And so you're getting the benefits of that. And it, you know, the evidence is quite strong that it does, you know, reduce a lot of health issues by doing something as simple as standing more. So in my practice, we don't yet have them, but we were thinking about having stand-up desks that you can sort of adjust. So if you want to stand up, you can sort of bring it up to sort of standing level. But because we don't have that, I've ended up ordering my own sort of, it's like it almost looks like one of those breakfast in bed tables, but you just put it on your desk as it is, put your computer on there, and you can sort of stand and work. And you know, it's just so much healthier to do that if you can. So any adaptations that you can do at work, just give it a try, see if your employers will be happy to support you with that. Because as I say, it does really help, you know, improve physical activity just on the most basic level. And then there are other sort of ways of breaking the cycle. So making sure that if you do have any chronic disease, any chronic illness that's impacting on your ability to do physical activity, make sure that you see your GP and that it's you know, that you've got it under control. You know, which might involve a medication review. You know, it might be sort of adjusting a few things, but would recommend that as well. So I think Connor's going to talk about the common barriers.
Yes, I'm happy to go through some of the barriers for exercise. Obviously, I know we've just been through a lot of it. Then the biggest one straight away that was shouted by a few people was, I don't have time. Obviously, like we've mentioned earlier, you know, it's trying to fit around yourself personally, you know, making it a priority. And, you know, other things can wait, you know, like it says there, the dishes and things like that. And it even is just little changes. I think a lot of people might expect, you know, exercising is like to be, you have to spend an hour in the gym, you've got to spend an hour doing a certain sport, things like that. It is just minimal changes, such as just taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Like we said before, think about multitasking as well. Something that a colleague of ours, Liam, mentioned earlier that he's done with someone, and I thought was fantastic, is he's done where through each day, you know, he's coming up with combining different things as he's doing it. For example, every time you pick up your phone, before you pick up the phone, you should do 5 squats. Before you open the fridge door, do 5 of a different exercise. Do 5 wall pushes before you go into a new room. You know, something I do is when I'm brushing my teeth for 2 minutes, I don't sit still or stand still. I walk around the flat. I look like a loony while I'm doing it, but I'm sure my neighbours question it while I'm doing it, but I'm still on my feet, I'm moving. And I think, like I've just mentioned as well, you want to be considering these smaller time slots as well. Scheduling, you know, 10 minutes in exercise a day can eventually add up quickly. If I do a 10-minute walk in the morning, if I have lunch at work and that's half an hour, and I have 10 minutes just to walk off my lunch after, then 10 minutes just when I get home, that's 30 minutes of activity each day. That's obviously your recommendation completed. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes in one setting, which I think is a big thing. When it comes to obviously your time as well, like I've just mentioned before, that a lot of people do think it is, you know, when it comes to exercise, I have to go lift heavy weights, I've got to run marathons, I've got to do all these things, and it isn't the case. You know, that's training. It's something completely different. We want to be looking at just physical activity for yourself, for your health and benefits. And you can even see there just in the bottom right corner, you know, such things as Movement Monday. You don't need a gym, you don't need time at work. We've all got a chair right now. We could do 3 of these exercises. I've got a staircase right out the door there. I could go even start walking up and down the stairs as well if I wanted to. One as well as I'm not seeing the results. That is something that obviously it can be demotivating for a lot of people. You know, we want to be seeing the results. I want to start losing weight. I want to start seeing myself in the mirror. I want to be a lot better. I want to look and, you know, see the weight physically leaving. This does take a long time. People do forget that you've spent X amount of years, depending on whatever age you are. So for myself, 25, I've spent 25 years eating and having a lifestyle that continuously has built up for myself. It won't take 6 weeks to change that. It does take a very long time to make these changes. But something we do strive for ABL is we do want to show that small improvements can go a long way. You know, have you maybe got more energy? Have you had less pain? Do you sleep better? Do you just feel better overall? And I think a lot of people try and fix it onto the numbers. Yeah, but Connor, I went up a pound since last week. That's okay. Have you had more water? Have you been eating more food? Have you slept better? Do you feel great? And it's looking at all these other things. And completing any goal is a big achievement. Even if your achievement was to have more water through the day, fantastic. Really glad you've done it. You should be proud of that achievement because it's a difference, and it is a healthier difference. Obviously, like Shamyla was saying earlier, that you can have big long-term effects, and it's just these little changes to benefit you later on in life. You know, I don't really like it. That's okay. I literally said before this call started, if you ask me to run 30 minutes, I get bored out of my mind within the first 5 minutes. I start staring at everything in the room. I'll try and look for anything. I'll watch a bird outside the window. I'd rather do anything than run a treadmill for 30 minutes. And it's about finding activities that you enjoy yourself. I'm a huge weightlifter. I love weightlifting. I love boxing as well. But for example, my colleagues Claire and Hanny, they might enjoy something different. You might like swimming or tennis, squash, walking, running, cycling, rowing. There's a million and one different things, and it's just about understanding the availability maybe in your area and not being afraid just to try these different things. You know, like it says there, if you don't like running, maybe try yoga, swimming, or biking. Experimenting with different options as well can have a lot of great benefits. Like we said, socially, you might meet more people if you're doing more yoga classes or other classes like spin classes in the gyms and things like that. Obviously, you know, trial classes are available at the gyms. That saves you money as well, and that's always a nice bonus when we're doing it. And considering online classes, we've mentioned obviously, the pandemic, COVID being sitting down and things like that. A lot of classes are online, and something I do like to push for my clients personally is this is the 21st century. You can access everything on the internet. If I asked everyone here and now to go on YouTube and type in 15-minute workout session, there is thousands upon thousands of different exercise videos there. You could type with no equipment, with equipment, outside, and there'll be loads of different varieties for everyone that can be tailored to yourself personally, which I think is fantastic that we live in a world where there's just a million and one resources everywhere, and you can always use them and adapt it for yourselves. I need an incentive. That's one of the biggest ones for yourself. And it's like we were saying earlier about goal setting. You mentioned earlier, and I still think it's fantastic. I actually went off to go find it a image before. I think Shamyla mentioned it, and it was two people climbing a ladder. There was one where the steps are very close to each other, and there's one where the steps are a great distance from each other. And you will climb those little steps to reach these goals at the end. A lot of people, myself included, have been like, I want to lose 6-7 stone. That's a great long-term goal, but we need to have a lot of little short-term goals between now and then. And it can be as simple goal as I want to start going to the gym with a friend or a neighbor as an exercise partner. Can make it more enjoyable. You can plan to meet each other each week and setting yourself a reward as well. Like a long-term reward. For example, for the summer, before I went on holiday, I wanted to look better when I have the beach pictures and things like that. And that's my long-term goal. That's my reward as well. Like I will look better in these pictures. I will feel better. I will run this. I will be healthier. And you might notice that I've said me, it's for myself. I'm not doing this for anyone else. This doesn't benefit anyone else. It's just for you guys. That's what I want to be getting across when we're doing it as well. We want to be trying to track and measure. I know it says at the top there, we want to be trying to track and measure this. This can be through images, a journal as well. That's a great one. Something I underestimated by doing it myself now is every week I write in a journal about how I felt during the gym, how my sleep was, things like that. And I can show the progress as I'm doing it. Obviously, each session does, require, warming up, cool down, and we want to try and prevent these injuries. Some people I see it as well, just jump straight in head first when we're doing it as well. So a reference I do like to use is when it's nice and icy outside, you've got to let the car warm up before driving away or it's dangerous. So we've got to have that car nice and warm before we get going. Same is the exact same for yourself. Your body is a machine. You've got to treat it well and we've got to look after it. So obviously having that 10 minutes of light aerobic exercises with some stretching movement, that could be fast-paced walking. I'm going to run us through some in a bit, so I'm just going to pre-warn you all there. Jogging on the spot, lunges, arm swinging, shoulder rotations. There's plenty we can do because we want to get the blood circulation through our body and we want to get ourselves active and moving, not just shocking the body by going right straight from this, diving headfirst into the deep end of the swimming pool. You want to give yourself a bit of time and a bit of warming up so we're not shocking our body. And obviously, contrary to what people think, there is little evidence that static stretching reduces, your risk of injury during physical exercise. I personally like to stretch beforehand. I like to make sure my muscles are loose, they're not tight, because I want to reduce the risk of injury for myself. Because obviously, when you're injured, you'll stop exercising, and that might halt your goals. It might take you further back when we're doing it. However, I would argue that dynamic stretching incorporated to the warm up is still very popular. So that's what we're doing. And there is examples online as well. Just on a click there. I don't think we have the time just to go through it. But there is examples everywhere.
That's just to have a look in your own time when we send out the PowerPoint slide.
Yeah. But it was like I was mentioning earlier, 21st century is millions of things online everywhere. There's loads of literature and books, and don't try and reinvent the wheel when we're doing this. You don't need to be big and spectacular. I need to do 6 back flips and 4 front flips as a warm-up. Just get yourself jogging, get the body moving.
Where you're at now, and just think about the next steps that you could take. So I think the things to take away from what's already been said so far is that, any kind of physical activity will benefit you. And it's just about thinking about what's going to get you from the situation that you're at now to a better physical activity situation. And it doesn't have to be a massive step. It can just be the first step. So being aware of all the different things that are, good to do, and kind of just sort of showed you all the, a range of activities that you could do, ranging from quite challenging to much less challenging. Just see where you're at and just try and make that first step that gets you in a better sort of physical activity state, if you like. And then also just being aware of any resources around you. It could be just in your home. It could be, like I say, the buddy that you might do your exercise with. It could be that, you know, knowing the leisure centres that are around, or the you know, the free tennis courts, or the free you know, the parks that are available, things that you can do there, or, you know, or some of the paid sort of venues, knowing what's around so that you know that you can access those, and make it part of your plan. And there's a reason why people stay inactive. They never set the first step. And like Connor said, the first step tends to be the hardest one. But once you make that step, you're kind of on a roll after that. It just gets easier. In fact, one of the rules of procrastination that I read about, and this really applies to anything, is if it feels like it's going to be hard to do, just get on with it and do it. Just block your mind and just do it. And you'll find that once you're in it, it's fine and it's easy, it's okay. But it's just making that step that can be the most challenging thing. And if you don't make that step, you're just set to lose a lot, really.
Yeah, I think in terms of the procrastination, what you're saying, something I always got told was, would you rather not try and fail or try and fail? And it's, you know, because if you do try, you won't fail because you've tried, and, you know, you learn from experience. And just going back to the resources, something I did for lockdown is, this is a 2 litre water. It's around 2 kilograms. That's plenty of weight to use, and all it is a bottle of water. I think it's about 30 pence from a shop. And you can just have that water, keep filling it up, and you can use it for different muscular exercises, cardio exercises, and then you can drink it afterwards and refresh yourself, which I think is fantastic. It's just there for you.
So then we've got lots of opportunities as well that you could access, and resources. So exercise or physical activity on prescription. This is something that is available to patients through their GP, or it might be available if you look on your local council's website. So if you're wanting to improve your physical activity, sometimes they've got criteria that you have to fulfill, and you may well fulfill them, or it might be that they're just you know, it's open to anyone. Just see your GP and get a referral, and, you know, you'll be able to get access to, perhaps, you know, I've seen access to gyms either at discounted rates or free, to see what's available. There's also local community schemes as well. So walkingforhealth.org.uk, if you look on that website, it has a list of free short walks all over the country. So you can just pop your postcode in and see what the most local ones are, and you might meet other people who are doing it as well. So that can be quite nice. Then there's Park Run, which is a free 5 kilometre runs for all abilities within many locations across England, and there's a link there that you can to go on. Good Gym as well. So I think this is available in Stockport and Trafford, and it combines running with community activities. And then online information as well. So there's apps such as One U website, which offers advice and links to smartphone apps like Active 10 and Couch to 5K. So these kind of help you to, you know, to get more active. They're things that other people are doing across the country as well.
Yeah, there's a million one things across everywhere for yourself. Even something that you personally have interest, Google, research, ask around. There'll be something for yourself everywhere. Legislation have always a wide option. You know, there's always specialized groups on in case you're worried about certain things. You know, it's there. I think it's just the purpose of all this is to prevent the barriers for you. It's to get yourself started. And like we've mentioned once, twice, you know, the first step in the door is the hardest step. And as soon as you're in that one, you want to take the next step, and the next one. Next thing you know, you're running and you're flying off, and there's nothing that's going to stop you.
And yeah, some of these apps, you know, they can be really helpful just to help you make those steps. So like I mentioned about the Active 10, it offers online activities, and it encourages things like 10 minutes of brisk walking every day, or, you know, Couch to 5K. It just encourages people to take up running. So it's just helps you to make those initial steps, and you know, supports you kind of throughout it.
Fantastic.
And then in the work setting as well. So yeah, think about things that you could improve in your workplace. It could be something that you do as a team. You could have a chat with your colleagues about it, and see what you would like to do, either as a practice or as a, you know, as a team, that could help to improve everyone's well-being and physical activity. So, for example, in our practice, we now have a regular yoga session every Monday lunchtime, and then any member of staff can attend it, and that's you know, that's a really nice time to just put your work away, you know, just pause for half an hour or an hour, depends how it's arranged, and you know, just spend time with your colleagues, just you know, doing yoga or doing some other form of physical activity. Or it could be that as a group you decide that you're going to go for a walk and come back, you know, you know, after you've done that to get back to work. So that can really just help you get through the rest of the day as well. And then the Royal College of General Practitioners, they've got a scheme which is the Active Practice Charter for staff and for patients. And essentially what that is as a practice, you can sign up to it, and it helps to reduce sedentary behaviour in staff. So, and it's aimed to increase physical activity. It sort of encourages you to partner with local physical activity resources or services. Lots of practices have already joined. Maybe have a chat with your PCN social prescriber about, you know, having something like this available in your area. Maybe you know, sort of see what your colleagues or your you know, your bosses might want to do to include something like this. There might be even funding available to be able to do something like this at your practice. And also there's Public Health England clinical champion training sessions available that are free to anyone who wants to attend those. And it could be that you're the sort of a champion for your practice around physical activity and well-being. So maybe just have a think about either you'd want to do it, or maybe as a practice think about how you might set something like this up, just so that as a practice, you know, you all are able to sort of access you know, something that will improve physical activity and well-being you know, at the workplace. And that might help to manage, you know, the time management issue, or, you know, it just might help to keep you all really motivated. And there's a blog I've kind of included here, a blog as well. This is about local services that might be available and how to find them. So just have a click on that link and just see what's available in your area.
And
So,
like always,
yeah.
oh, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
So yeah, now it's your turn. So you've got here an image of what counts as physical activity, lots of different things. It can be anything, you can make it up as well. Anything that sort of challenges your body a little bit, anything that gets you a bit breathless, anything that gets your heart racing a little bit is good exercise. So it doesn't even matter what it is. We've talked about some examples, but you know, just think about where you are now and what you want to achieve. Make an intention, you know, make an intention of what you want to achieve, where you want to be on the physical activity front. And it's all about setting smart goals. So, you know, what does SMART sort of stand for? I don't know if anyone's come across SMART goal setting. It's all about making sure that your goals are realistic, they are measurable. I mean, they don't have to be quite like this, but it's useful to sort of frame it in this way. They're sort of time bound. So, you know, it could be that, for example, you say, right now, I'm not actually doing very much physical activity. All I do is what I do, just going to work, or, you know, I don't actually make a conscious effort to do any physical activity. So I think what I'm going to do is maybe just once a week, just to start with, because I think that's doable. I'm going to just go for a walk around the block on a Saturday, and you know, I'm going to sort of do that for about 20 minutes and get back home and try and do that every week. If I do that for a month, and then I can sort of see if I can increase that, improve it, and maybe do it twice a week after that. You know, sort of set it really, make it specific. Just don't say something like, right, I'm just going to exercise more, because that kind of doesn't really mean anything. You've got to really sort of outline exactly what you're planning to do, when you're going to do it, how long you're going to do it for, how are you going to do it, and what do you need to do to make that possible. So that's what you need to do, and write it down. It really helps if you write it down. So maybe just amongst you, just jot 3 things down that you think you realistically could do. Like I say, it doesn't have to be big, just the first steps, and just see, you know, you could write it down sort of and keep it private, or you can shout them out. It's up to you what you'd like to do, but I would really encourage you to just write down 3 things that you could do, or even just one thing that you could realistically do. Make that intention, outline it really clearly, and make a plan to do it. And as I say, don't make it too adventurous, make it doable, because you'll feel good once you've achieved that, and it just gives you that more motivation and confidence. And then, you know, after a realistic time frame, so, you know, I've mentioned in the example, you know, after a month, it could be 2 weeks, it just depends where you are and what's realistic. But if you think, you know, if I can do this regularly for a month, I feel that I have genuinely achieved something consistent, a consistent habit that I'm prepared to now revise and improve on for the next, let's say, month. So it's got to be something that you can honestly say, have I achieved that goal? Have I actually achieved it? And you can just look at what you've done and compare and see that actually you have done it or not. And then also celebrate your achievements as well. So, you know, obviously we'd always recommend something healthy. We wouldn't want you to, you know, to do something that's going to set you back. But it might be something that you enjoy doing, that you've just never really planned, you know, put time into, and you've maybe not felt that you deserve that thing. You know, so just think about something that you'd really like to do, and set that as a sort of a goal to sort of achieve. And celebrate it. You know, you can sort of think about different ways you can do that. And it, again, that just makes you feel good, and it makes you, you know, motivated to take the next steps.
Yeah, it's like I just mentioned earlier, just taking that 2 minutes just to start it and get it going will you know, lead you on to do more and more and more. And you don't need to set the bar so high where, you know, you can't reach the bar itself. Even like, you know, we were saying there, just 20 minutes of walk on the Saturday. Do you know what? I'll do 22 next week. I'll do 24, 5, 6, 7. Then a couple of weeks time, you're going, well, I'm walking now for 2 hours. And it feels like nothing. It feels fantastic. And it's just slow and steady. You know, I always say, like the hare and the tortoise. The tortoise won the race. It was slow and steady, it won the race. You know, and it's just taking it, you know, slow and steady for yourself as well, you know, when we're doing this as well. And asking yourself how and why, you know, how am I going to do this? Why am I doing this? Why do I need to walk? Well, I need to look after my health. I don't feel too good. I'm not sleeping as well. You know, I feel like I'm not doing anything. Great. Well, how are you going to do that? I'm going to start walking on a Saturday. Fantastic. There's your goal. It's measured, it's tracked, and you know what you're doing, which I think is just what the overall point is. I think a lot of people set these too high expectations for themselves to, I need to catch up with Mo Farah at the Olympics next year. You don't, it's fine. He's a complete athlete. He's doing his own thing. You know, we're going to do it for yourself. And that's where the, you know, the S comes in. It's, you know, specific, it's to you. What my goal is different to your goal, might be different to the next person's goal. And it's just based on yourself and what you want to do.
So yeah, I mean, I've got an image here which just kind of really nicely sort of explains the importance of small steps. So you've got there 2 ladders. The first one has got really tiny rungs, you know, spaces between the rungs and lots of rungs. And then you've got the other ladder, which has spaced out rungs that are just too far for the person to even reach. You know, that goal, that first goal that they've set is just not attainable, and they can't even reach it. They've set it too strict, you know, too harsh. Whereas the other person has set quite an easy goal. It's achievable, but it just motivates them and helps them to move on to the next step and the next step and the next step. And they get much further forward than the person who has set the unrealistic goals. So it just shows you how important it is to you know, to not be too hard on yourself and not compare yourself against other people as well. You've got to do what's right for you for now, and it's all about taking the next steps, looking at the step ahead, not the end goal so much, you know, and achieving those next steps rather than always, you know, trying to get to the end goal really fast. And you know, so, and I've got here just on the right hand side just a summary of you know, the guidance around physical activity and for adults and for older people as well.